Childhood in a small town. Emily and Olivia's story begins in the heart of Texas, in the quiet, sun-drenched town of Willow Creek. It was the kind of place where everyone's business was common knowledge, and each face was familiar. The girls met before they could even remember. Neighbors from birth, their mothers often referred to them as a matched pair. From their earliest days, Emily and Olivia were inseparable. Their childhoods intertwined through lazy summer afternoons, spent climbing ancient oak trees, dusty sneakers thumping along Main Street as they chased the ice cream truck, and secret picnics by the small, winding creek at the town's edge. While Olivia was adventurous and outspoken, Emily was the more thoughtful, creative one, often sketching dresses or doodling dreams in the margins of her school notebooks. School brought them even closer. In the elementary classrooms of Willow Creek, they quickly built a reputation as the perfect team, always partnering for group projects, always watching each other's backs. Teachers saw promise in both and encouraged their curiosity and ambition. Though it was clear Emily excelled in art and design, while Olivia's charm and quick wit made her the center of any gathering. Their favorite place was a forgotten attic in Emily's house, where they would build makeshift forts from blankets and tell each other their wildest dreams. Olivia talked about performing on grand stages, dazzling audiences. Emily confessed her dream of one day making it big in New York's fashion world. They even made a pact, sealed with pinky promises and laughter, that one day they would leave Willow Creek together to conquer the city. Outside, the world felt small and sometimes stifling, but together they built a fortress of friendship. Through scraped knees, family hardships, and the occasional argument, Emily and Olivia always found their way back to each other. The town's annual summer fair was their playground. They dominated three-legged races, shared funnel cakes, and spun in dizzy circles on the Ferris wheel, believing nothing could ever pull them apart. No one in Willow Creek could remember a time when Emily and Olivia weren't together. From Girl Scout cookie sales to starring in the school play, their names were almost always said in the same breath. Under the broad Texas sky, the girls believed their bond was unbreakable, a friendship destined for bigger horizons, far beyond their little town. First, love and subtle jealousies. As adolescence dawned over Willow Creek, the easy innocence of childhood friendship between Emily and Olivia began to shift in almost imperceptible ways. The girls, once so alike in their dreams, gradually found themselves pulled by new interests and, more notably, by new faces. High school brought the swirl of hormones, social circles, and the first pulse of romance. Emily, with her quiet confidence and effortless grace, quickly caught the eye of Jake Reynolds, a star athlete known across the school for his easy smile and natural charm. Their connection sparked almost naturally. Jake admired Emily's creative talent and gentle spirit, and soon enough, they became the couple everyone talked about in hushed, admiring voices by the lockers. For the first time, Emily's artwork seemed charged with a fresh energy, as sketches of dresses and glamour began to include shy initials and secret hearts. Olivia, on the other hand, watched the unfolding romance from the sidelines, a mixture of loyalty and something sharper swirling in her chest. She told herself she was happy for her best friend. After all, they had promised to support each other, no matter what. But as Jake and Emily grew closer, Olivia couldn't help noticing the way classmates noticed Emily, or how invitations and whispers started including Emily's name first. She compared herself at every turn. Was she less pretty, less talented, less memorable? Navigating the bustling hallways of their Texas high school, Olivia put on a brave face. She cheered for Emily at art contests, laughed with her in the cafeteria, and even offered advice about Jake when Emily came seeking reassurance. Yet, beneath her bright smile, Olivia struggled with a growing sense of invisibility, a fear that she was losing her place in Emily's life and in the world they'd built together. Little moments began to chip away at their childhood harmony. A missed phone call here, a forgotten secret there, an inside joke that Olivia was no longer privy to. Olivia's envy wasn't the loud, dramatic kind. Rather, it simmered quietly, manifesting in subtle gestures, hesitations, and lingering glances. She found herself wondering what it would be like to be in Emily's shoes, to have someone adore her so much, to be celebrated instead of just being the best friend. Their attic talks lost some of their carefree glow, tinged now with awkward silences and unspoken questions. Olivia tried harder to keep up, to stay relevant, to remind Emily and herself that their friendship was still the most important thing. But now, every compliment Jake gave Emily, every teacher's praise, every new circle of friends seemed to widen the gap between them, even as they clung to memories of summers past. In these years, the seeds of subtle jealousy and longing quietly took root, invisible to almost everyone, including Emily herself. Neither of them knew just how much these unspoken feelings would shape the course of their lives in the years to come. The first betrayal. The final year of high school in Willow Creek was supposed to be the crowning chapter of Emily and Olivia's lifelong companionship. Spirits soared with graduation drawing near, and the whole town buzzed with anticipation as the seniors made plans for prom, college, and their last summer together. For Emily, it was a time filled with nervous excitement. She was creating her own dress for the senior prom, sketching late at night under the glow of Christmas lights strung over her bedroom. For Olivia, it was the peak of high school social life. She had more followers than anyone in their grade, starred in the school play, and was planning to compete for homecoming queen. On the surface, everything seemed perfect, almost movie-like, but underneath, the dynamic between Emily and Olivia had begun to shift in ways neither completely understood. The subtle rifts and jealousies of their earlier high school years had quietly set the stage for what was to come. It started with Jake. Having dated Emily for nearly a year, he was often present during their hangouts, and Olivia grew used to sharing experiences, not just with Emily, but as a trio. At first, it felt fun and innocent. Olivia would poke fun at Jake, but always side with Emily. She wanted to believe she was helping her best friend, keeping things lively, keeping attention on their little group. But one autumn night, everything changed. After the big football game, Willow Creek's stadium was ablaze with celebration. Students milled about in the parking lot, and laughter echoed under the floodlights. Emily and Jake had argued, just a harmless tiff over nothing, and Emily, feeling moody, left early. Olivia lingered. She stayed partly because she enjoyed the glowing energy of the night, and partly because Jake asked if she wanted company for a walk around the track. "That was some fight," Jake said, chuckling nervously as they wandered. Olivia assured him Emily would calm down, that they always worked things out. But as the conversation drifted from football to movies to shared frustrations, Olivia began to realize how easy Jake was to talk to. That night beneath the bright Texas stars, there was a flicker, nothing overt, just the spark of something forbidden. Afterward, Olivia tried to smother the memory. She reasoned it was just a moment of weakness, nothing more. But Jake texted her the next day, something small and inside jokey, and she replied, at first innocently, then more often than she should have. Their texts became a ritual. Complaints about school, private jokes, late-night thoughts. Olivia felt seen in a new way. Exciting, fun, just a bit dangerous. Each time, she told herself it would be the last message. Each time, it wasn't. Slowly, what had started as friendship began to blur. Olivia never meant to cross a line, but the intoxicating feeling of being admired, of being the center of someone's attention, pulled her in. Jake, for his part, seemed genuinely torn. He loved Emily, but told Olivia he wished things were simpler, that sometimes he wondered about her. Olivia tried to stop, but the secret thrill proved too much to resist. Meanwhile, Emily was caught up in her own world, the world of scholarship applications, portfolio deadlines, her dreams of making it to New York. She still shared everything with Olivia, though less and less with Jake, sensing a small but growing distance from him she couldn't explain. She chalked it up to stress in their busy lives. Then came the night Olivia betrayed her. It was the first Friday of spring break, a warm night, the sweet scent of magnolias drifting through her window, when Emily's phone buzzed. It was a message from a number she didn't recognize, but the content made her heart freeze. 3 screenshots of text conversations, unmistakably between Jake and Olivia. The exchanges ranged from flirty to outright confessions of feelings, and, finally, a photo of Olivia and Jake together outside a coffee shop, holding hands. Emily's world fractured in an instant. She barely remembered grabbing her keys, racing to Olivia's house, fighting back tears as she pounded on the front door. Olivia answered, surprised and unprepared. Emily, shaking, held up the phone and demanded an answer.
Triumph.
She'd never screamed at Olivia before, in all their years of being side by side, and the shock was enough to render Olivia silent. Jake, too nervous to confront Emily in person, sent only a brief text, admitting that everything was true, and it just happened. There were no explanations that could wash away what had been done. Olivia cried, tried to explain, but the weight of her guilt was plain to see. She insisted she never meant to hurt Emily, that it was all a mistake, a moment's weakness. But Emily was inconsolable. All the years of unwavering trust, all the whispered secrets in the attic, all the pinky promises, they shattered in that single, merciless night. Time seemed to slow after the confrontation. For days, Emily wandered through the house as if underwater, her dreams of New York suddenly shadowed by an unbearable ache. Her mother tried to comfort her. Her teachers asked what was wrong, but Emily answered none. She locked herself in her room, letting her sketchbook gather dust. The colors that once brightened her world dulled to gray. Word spread quickly, as it always did in Willow Creek. Friends whispered in the hallways, glancing at Olivia with sympathy, and Emily with pity. For the first time, Emily felt truly alone in her hometown, a place that once felt safe, now echoing with the sound of broken trust. Jake and Olivia became pariahs among certain circles. Some blamed Jake, some blamed Olivia, but most just took sides and spread rumors. But for Emily, the betrayal wasn't just about losing a boyfriend, or even her closest friend. It was the loss of innocence,
I'm so sorry, Mom.
the painful realization that some wounds can only be stitched together by time and self-forgiveness. Nights in the attic became memories instead of rituals. Laughter turned into silence between old friends who now barely met each other's gaze. Olivia tried to make amends, sending texts and notes, even leaving a small box of shared mementos at Emily's doorstep. But Emily barely looked at them. Her pain ran deeper than anger. She grieved not just for Jake, but for the piece of herself she had entrusted to Olivia, the trust that only the rarest friendships are built upon. As graduation approached, Emily wondered if she would ever be able to trust anyone as she once trusted Olivia. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. The betrayal had marked the end of their childhood, and there was no going back. This moment, though devastating, would become the crucible in which Emily's character was truly forged, a test not just of resilience, but of how to move forward when everything she valued had been ripped away. What she didn't know, not yet, was that this was only the first in a series of betrayals that would test her ability to rise, rebuild, and ultimately to triumph on her own terms. Stolen fame and career. After graduation, Willow Creek emptied out like a bottle in the Texas heat. Some kids disappeared into the sprawl of Houston or Dallas. Others headed for colleges across the country, chasing new purpose. For Emily, every memory of her hometown had become tinged with pain. Remnants of trust, broken, and futures unraveled. Yet wrapped within the ache, one dream still gleamed. New York, the city of endless ambition and creative possibility. There, Emily believed the past would loosen its grip and a new destiny could bloom. During that last summer, Emily worked tirelessly on her portfolio for the prestigious Rising Designers competition, held each fall in Manhattan. This was no ordinary high school event. It was a launch pad for emerging talent, a chance for unknowns to break into the upper echelons of American fashion. Emily poured herself into the challenge, drawing inspiration from the wild Texas sunsets, the loneliness of wide-open spaces, and the deeper wounds of betrayal. Each gown she sketched felt like a step toward reclaiming her wounded self. She shared her progress sparingly. Only her mother, her mentor, Mrs. Carmichael, and, perhaps unwisely, Olivia, knew the details of her vision. By now, Olivia and Emily had drifted into an uneasy truce. The breach Emily had suffered was too raw for real forgiveness, but mutual friends and years of closeness made total separation impossible. Olivia, quick to gloss over discomfort, offered encouragement for Emily's dreams. She asked after sketches in progress, sometimes stopping by unannounced with coffee or the pretense of reconciliation. Inside, Emily felt the old stirring of hope. Maybe some part of their friendship could be rebuilt, at least around art. What Emily didn't suspect was that Olivia's support masked a different agenda. Unbeknownst to Emily, Olivia had applied to the Rising Designers competition at the last minute. She'd always admired Emily's creativity and envied it too. Olivia was a smart dresser and a savvy talker, but her own designs tended to mimic the trends she saw online. Watching Emily spill over with ideas was both inspiring and irritating. One evening, under the guise of a friendly visit, Olivia feigned interest in Emily's design process. Over iced tea, Emily reluctantly shared the boldest concept in her collection: Wild Prairie, a flowing earth-tone dress with intricate beading meant to evoke the burnt orange horizon of their childhood home. "It's beautiful," Olivia said, her voice soft and a little breathless. "I've never seen anything like it." Emily smiled for the first time in days. That night, after Emily left the sketchbook in plain view, Olivia lingered under the pretext of helping clean up. Her gaze fell upon the page. She snapped a quick photo, palm slick with guilt. She told herself it was just for inspiration. Inside, she knew better. The last days of summer blurred by. Emily submitted her finalized portfolio. Glowing with pride and relief, she flew to New York alone, a suitcase full of fabric and hope, her first real break from her small-town past. The city roared around her, cabs blaring, designers prowling backstage, the hum of possibility vibrating in the air. Unlike anything she'd ever known, Emily's nerves nearly buckled as she saw her dress displayed among dozens of dazzling entries. But something deeper, the unbreakable core that had endured heartbreak, held her steady. The day before the awards ceremony, Olivia sent her a congratulatory text out of the blue. "I'm so proud of you. No matter what happens, you were always meant for this." Emily, heartened, began to wonder if hope for their friendship could persist after all. But the next morning, everything unraveled. As Emily entered the exhibition hall, a flurry of excitement swirled from a nearby display. Press, judges, competitors, all crowding around a vibrant gown front and center. Emily's heart plummeted. The dress was hers, down to every bead, every feathery brushstroke of color. The wild prairie design, credited not to her, but to Olivia Bennett. It made the cover of the show's promotional materials. Social media buzzed. Who was the Texas girl behind this revolutionary look? Olivia, standing nearby in a sleek black suit, fielded questions from reporters. She basked in the limelight, her answers rehearsed, full of charm. "I've always drawn from the beauty and hardship of where I grew up. This piece is more than fashion. It's identity." Emily's mind reeled. For a moment, she couldn't breathe, couldn't move. She approached an organizer, voice trembling. "There's some mistake. That's my design." The woman hardly looked up from her clipboard. "I'm sorry, miss. Finalists have already been verified." In a flash, Emily realized how thorough Olivia had been, right down to registering the sketch under her own name, modifying the color scheme just enough to skirt suspicion. There were no witnesses, no proof, just Emily's word against Olivia's charisma and paperwork. The next 24 hours collapsed into a nightmare. Olivia won first prize, along with a scholarship and internship that guaranteed her a foothold in the New York fashion world. She was celebrated with headlines, interviews, and a whirlwind of new connections. For Emily, the fallout was brutal. She left the venue in stunned silence. The city lights reflected in her tears. Her mother, who had watched the awards stream online, called in disbelief. Her mentor, Mrs. Carmichael, voiced outrage. But no one outside Willow Creek seemed to care about a wronged girl from Texas. Social media only fueled Olivia's new legend, especially when she posted a photo of the trophy with a caption, "To old friends and new journeys." At first, Emily was paralyzed by sorrow and shame, her social media filled with questions. Why weren't you at the awards? Did you see Olivia's dress? Are you okay? She couldn't answer them. The loss was about more than just a dress. It was about trust, dignity, and the years of work she'd poured into her art. Olivia reached out once, a chirpy, casual message, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. "Can you believe it? I'm still in shock. Hope you're having fun in the city." Emily deleted the message before she could reply. Yet beneath the heartbreak, another feeling ignited, a cold, precise resolve. Emily would not let her story end this way. She spent nights pacing her tiny rented room in Manhattan, replaying each moment, inspecting every detail that Olivia had stolen. With every sleepless hour, Emily's resolve grew. She began recording her story, logging emails, saving sketches, and reaching out to contacts who'd been present at each exchange. Olivia might have stolen her moment, but she'd underestimated the fire she'd lit. For Emily, New York was no longer just the city of her dreams. Now, it was the crucible in which she'd forge her comeback, a silent plan for revenge. In the days that followed Olivia's theft, Emily felt herself dissolve into the noise of New York. The city itself, so vast, bright, and full of stories, made her heartbreak seem like just another speck in the constant churn. She woke in her cramped studio apartment, numb, her sketchbooks unopened, her emails from home growing unread and impersonal. She scrolled through social feeds packed with Olivia's smiling face, posing beside industry veterans, photographed at rooftop parties, even quoted in interviews that praised her unique Texan sensibility. Each tap on Emily's phone only drove Olivia's betrayal deeper. But while the pain was real and raw, it didn't crush Emily. Instead, it hardened her. She had survived worse, broken homes and broken trust, and she knew, perhaps for the first time, that no one was coming to save her. If she ever wanted to clear her name and take back her future, the work would have to start with her, right here, in this city of strangers. So Emily let her anger cool, forging it into something colder, sharper, more focused than rage. Resolve. She reminded herself that Olivia, for all her outward confidence, was still that small-town girl who had needed someone's ideas to shine. And now, Olivia had made herself vulnerable to ego, to exposure, and to the specific, careful vengeance of someone who knew her inside out. The blueprint for revenge. Emily began by making a plan, not of retaliation for its own sake, but of redemption. She remembered her high school mentor, Mrs. Carmichael's words, "Don't burn bridges, but if someone tries to burn yours, make sure they can't cross back." Revenge, for Emily, would be justice in the truest sense. Not cruel, not public, but inevitable. The world needed to know what Olivia had done, and Olivia needed to face a reckoning that would haunt her far longer than a social media rumor. First, Emily became a collector of data. She scoured old emails, texts, and messages for proof that the wild prairie concept had been hers. Timestamps of concept sketches sent to Olivia for feedback, photos of her initial mood boards, even audio notes describing the dress in detail. She quietly reached out to a few friends back home, asking if they remembered her talking about the dress, discreet, out of curiosity. She even found an old Instagram story Olivia had reposted several months before the competition, featuring a corner of Emily's sketch. Then, she started to build a network. The fashion world, she learned quickly, was as much about relationships as raw talent. Emily began showing up at events small and large, not to make a scene, but to listen, to observe, and eventually to introduce herself to the right people: assistants, interns, junior editors, anyone overlooked but connected. She helped backstage at charity shows, fixed hems, fetched coffee for senior designers, all while watching for anyone who had worked with Olivia or attended the Rising Designers competition. With each bump in the road, Emily's facade grew steadier. She resisted petty sabotage, knowing Olivia's unearned success would, in time, breed more recklessness. Instead, Emily made herself indispensable in small ways. She left careful impressions: a tailored jacket here, a clever styling suggestion there. She offered quiet mentorship to younger students at the design school she joined, building goodwill and credibility outside the circle where Olivia now reigned supreme. Baiting the trap. Her real breakthrough came during a panel hosted for up-and-coming designers at a boutique hotel. Olivia was one of the headline guests, riding the wave of her recent win. Emily signed up for a networking breakfast, bringing an impromptu portfolio, not with her best current work, but with the storyboards, patterns, and color concepts that traced the entire evolution of Wild Prairie. She watched Olivia across the room, all flawless skin and curated laughter, surrounded by journalists and admirers. When an opportunity came, Emily didn't confront Olivia publicly. She instead chatted with a respected blogger who admired Emily's Southern-inspired sketches. "It's funny," Emily said. "I spent months on a dress inspired by the Texas horizon. I called it Wild Prairie. I even sent an early version to a friend for advice last summer, before the competition. Small world, isn't it?" The blogger raised her eyebrows, genuinely intrigued by the coincidence, and the seed was planted. Emily continued to sow doubt in small ways. At another mixer, she explained her creative process to a merchandising director, referencing her inspirations and hinting at the pain of seeing one's own work unrecognized. She never named Olivia, but in the fashion world, gossip traveled at lightning speed. Questions began to circulate. Had Olivia really designed that collection from scratch? Where had her sudden, mature vision come from? Was there more to the story? Gathering proof, building allies, and meanwhile, Emily kept gathering evidence.
Thank you.
She painstakingly recreated the wild prairie gown from memory, this time capturing each stage of her process in high-resolution photos, time-stamped and geolocated. She wrote a detailed timeline, annotated with messages, drafts, and corroborating statements from anyone who'd seen her early work. Piece by piece, she assembled a case strong enough to withstand scrutiny, one that would speak for itself should the time come. Her careful, under-the-radar networking paid off. She confided in one trusted professor, whose prior work in intellectual property law became invaluable. He encouraged Emily to document everything and introduced her to an attorney specialized in creative ownership disputes. They agreed that a public lawsuit would be risky. Fashion is a small world, and Emily didn't want to become known only for a feud. Instead, she waited, watched, and refined her plan, knowing that Olivia's growing arrogance would eventually present an opening. Setting the stage. That opening arrived when Olivia was nominated for another award, one focused on emerging talent's originality. This accolade would virtually guarantee a stream of sponsorships and press. And Olivia, hungry for more spotlight, launched a mini social media campaign, rehashing her wild Texan roots narrative. Emily, with her portfolio painstakingly dated and her network of new allies, decided it was time for the truth. She arranged for a magazine columnist, discreet but known for exposing creative industry scandals, to stumble upon her story in evidence during an informal interview series. When the columnist brought the evidence to the editorial board, the questions became public. How much of Olivia Bennet's stunning debut was her own? The article that followed didn't accuse directly, but laid out a compelling timeline, synchronizing Olivia's breakthrough with Emily's earlier process and ideas, watching the dominoes fall. The fallout didn't come all at once. At first, Olivia brushed off the whispers, then lashed out online, only to realize every angry denial brought more scrutiny. Emily didn't gloat. Instead, she continued to rise, focusing on her craft, allowing her work and her integrity to speak louder than any headline. Invitations to collaborate began to trickle in, at first tentative, then more substantial, as her reputation for quiet strength grew. Though her victory wasn't loud or vengeful, Emily's silent scheme restored her self-worth and positioned her not as a victim of theft, but as the unbreakable author of her own story. In the hush between the city's sirens and streetlights, she knew she'd reclaimed more than a design. She had reclaimed herself. The Truth Exposed Fall arrived in New York with a trace of smoky chill in the evening air, and the city hummed with anticipation for fashion's biggest events, the kind where emerging voices could finally break through. or be broken apart. For Emily, each day had become a careful choreography of hope and vigilance. The groundwork she had laid over months was beginning to yield whispers, and the web of doubt around Olivia's rapid ascent thickened with every ambiguous smile in backstage corridors. The season's marquee event was the annual Designers Gala, an exclusive affair hosted in a sprawling, modernist gallery on the West Side, flooded with camera flashes, industry power brokers, and journalists intent on chasing the next big story. Olivia was there, draped in the colors of her borrowed legend, surrounded by a constellation of admirers and press. But as the night unfurled, the tone was subtly different than before. Light-hearted congratulations gave way to curious, probing questions. Warm handshakes grew measured and cautious, with glances that lingered too long. Emily arrived with only a couple of close allies. Her mentor, Mrs. Carmichael, who had flown in to support her, and Maya, the young legal intern who quietly shepherded Emily through the labyrinth of creative rites. Emily felt a nervous energy she had never known before, a delicate blend of fear, resolve, and a quiet faith that she wasn't alone nor powerless. Earlier that week, the magazine expose had dropped online, its careful prose drawing together irrefutable timelines, witness anecdotes, and, most damningly, photographic and digital proof of Emily's original Wild Prairie sketches, complete with metadata that could not be easily disputed. The story never directly accused Olivia, but it asked open-ended questions and let the evidence speak for itself. Almost overnight, the dialogue around Olivia's career shifted from adulation to suspicion. Still, many in the industry reserved judgment. Fashion is full of coincidental inspiration, some muttered. Who really knows? Others hedged. Yet the murmurs grew too loud to ignore. Olivia's team moved quickly to clamp down on rumors, telling interviewers that such stories were inevitable when you're successful, and Olivia herself continued to project poise, even as cracks revealed themselves behind her smile. At the gala, the moment of reckoning arrived, disguised as opportunity, an onstage panel featuring the newest rising stars. Olivia was called up to join a roundtable discussion titled Breaking Through with Authenticity. Emily, listed as a finalist for a lesser-known innovation award, sat in the front rows, surrounded by journalists with sharpened pencils. The moderator's questions began benignly. Olivia recounted, with practiced eloquence, her journey from Texas to Manhattan, the values her roots instilled, the very personal inspiration behind her recent collection. For several minutes, the conversation drifted into familiar territory, safe and complimentary. Then, the moderator, prompted by the magazine piece, asked the question that changed everything. Olivia, much has been said about the origins of your celebrated Wild Prairie design. There are claims it closely resembles concept work submitted by another designer from your own hometown, Emily Rivers, who is also here tonight. Can you tell us about this coincidence? How do you respond to critics who believe the line between inspiration and imitation may have been crossed? A hush swept the hall. Olivia's carefully rehearsed composure faltered. For a split second, she stammered, then smiled. Inspiration is complicated, she began, her voice a touch too high. Emily is someone I've known all my life, and we come from the same place. Sometimes ideas grow in the same soil. I would never intentionally take credit for someone else's work. The moderator, however, persisted. Emily's evidence includes date-stamped sketches and digital correspondence referencing Wild Prairie, months before your entry. Some have described your interpretations as more than just parallel thinking. Would you be willing, tonight, to address this directly? Perhaps, even with Emily present? All eyes turned toward Emily. At first, her heart hammered so hard, she thought she might refuse. But Mrs. Carmichael squeezed her hand, and Maya gave a nod of quiet encouragement. Emily stood, walked to the stage, and took the extra microphone offered by a staff member. Emily's voice shook at first, but clarity came quickly. "I never wanted to cause a scandal," she said, her gaze steady. "What happened to me is, I think, sadly, not uncommon. But I believe credit matters, and telling the truth, no matter how late, never hurts as much as a lie. My sketches, drafts, and communications," she gestured to the display screen, where evidence was now projected, "show exactly how Wild Prairie was born in my studio, from my hands and my grief. I welcomed Olivia in as a friend, not a competitor, and it broke me to learn what she'd done. But I am standing here, not to punish, but to reclaim my own story, and to ask for a little justice." The room was silent. For several beats no one spoke, not even Olivia. Then questions flew, some respectful, some pointed, some gently challenging. One journalist asked Olivia directly if she had ever used Emily's work as a reference, citing the overwhelming evidence. Cornered and stripped of easy answers, Olivia's usual charm splintered. She shifted in her chair, tried to deflect, then finally, voice trembling, said the words that would echo beyond that single night. "I made a mistake. I took more than inspiration. I'm sorry, Emily." Her eyes darted to the ground, and the audience watched someone, once untouchable, finally held to account. Olivia's public apology, while not absolution, was an admission that reshaped the narrative on the spot. Within minutes, the event's PR team huddled. Olivia's awards came under immediate review. Her partnerships paused. Industry blogs began live posting the confrontation, and hashtags exploded across social media. Real Wild Prairie. Credit Emily. Truth in design. As the story spread, old classmates, teachers, and mentors from Willow Creek weighed in, confirming Emily's version of events. Even industry insiders who had dismissed earlier rumors began expressing regret and support. For Emily, the aftermath was a rush of complicated emotion, vindication tinged with exhaustion and sorrow for what had been lost. She'd won the truth, but paying the price for courage was something she felt deep in her bones. In the following days, publications issued corrections, and the Rising Designers competition apologized for their oversight, inviting Emily to present her own collection at the next major showcase. Messages of congratulations and some of apology flooded her inbox. Designers she'd admired from afar extended invitations to collaborate, and a handful of brands discussed future opportunities, drawn to her fortitude as much as her undeniable talent. Most importantly, Emily finally felt the weight of betrayal lift. For the first time since leaving Texas, she looked at herself in the mirror and saw not just a survivor, but a creator, a woman who had reclaimed her voice and dignity in the most public, daunting arena possible. As for Olivia, her rapid rise evaporated overnight. While she would eventually rebuild some semblance of a career, the days of easy influence and borrowed narratives were gone. The industry, once infatuated by her persona, had moved on. But even as Emily watched Olivia recede into the footnotes, she understood that forgiveness was not the same as forgetting. Some wounds would always ache, but the lesson was now her own, hard-won and lasting. On a brisk October morning, Emily stepped into her studio with sunlight streaking the hardwood floors. She opened a fresh sketchbook, hands steady, heart a little lighter. The truth had set her free, not just in the public eye, but in her soul. The city outside was as daunting as ever, but at last it felt like a place where she could belong, not as a shadow echo someone else's story, but as the author of her own. The triumphant return. The city was changed for Emily, and so was Emily herself. The aftermath of truth revealed, injustice won, left in its wake a raw, open space. At first, it was as if the bustle of New York, once intimidating and impersonal, had shifted its rhythm to something she could finally move with. She walked with new purpose through those avenues and alleys, her senses sharpened, not by fear, but by resolve. The days following Olivia's reckoning were a whirlwind of restitution and opportunity, but also self-confrontation. Invitations poured in from established designers and promising upstarts alike, each eager to collaborate with the woman who'd stood up for herself so publicly and unflinchingly. Her story traveled far beyond fashion circles. It resonated with every person who had ever been silenced, dismissed, or robbed of credit. Despite her introverted ways, Emily accepted many offers, understanding that her moment in the spotlight wasn't just about vindication. It was a platform she could use to change the industry. Still, true healing began quietly, at home. Her first days back in her small studio felt both heavy and hopeful. Emily stared at blank sketchbooks for hours, waiting for the urge to create to overpower the exhaustion lingering in her bones. It's okay to rest, her mother reminded her over the phone, voice soft and full of pride. But Emily feared stagnation. She had to keep moving, forging a new identity, not as someone wronged, but as someone who had overcome. The real turning point arrived, not from external validation, but from within. Emily unearthed her oldest sketches, crude designs from childhood, secret wishes, and outlandish colors, all untouched by betrayal or expectation. Looking at them, she remembered who she was before the world told her who to be. A dreamer, a storyteller, with needle and thread. She began designing, not for attention, awards, or anyone else's approval, but simply to express the joy and grit of survival. Her new collection was unlike anything she'd done before. Bold, infused with homegrown nostalgia, and the skyline's restless energy. There were flashes of Texas in her embroidery, but also defiant New York lines, contrasts and harmonies, rough with strength, but never losing grace. This mix, authentic and fiercely personal, became her signature. As word spread of her comeback collection, a blend of the prairie and the concrete jungle, resilience woven into every seam. Buyers and critics took serious notice. At Fashion Week, her runway show opened to a standing ovation. Models in Lone Star lights and East River mornings walked with the same upright poise Emily had forced herself to adopt. Between spotlights, she caught sight of her old mentor, Mrs. Carmichael, beaming from the second row, sharing tears with Emily's mother, flown in for the occasion. Backstage, Emily found herself mobbed by young designers wanting advice, validation, and, for the first time, her autograph. One intern, hands shaking, confessed, "You didn't just change the way I think about design. You showed me how to stand up for myself." The moment choked Emily with gratitude and humility. For years, she'd measured success by industry milestones. Now, legacy meant something deeper. With newfound recognition, Emily was determined to reshape the toxic aspects of the fashion world she had glimpsed. She insisted that interns in her workshop be paid and credited for their ideas. She started side projects with other wronged creatives, photographers, pattern makers, Latino and Asian design students, turning her studio into a haven for those with stories like hers. Rather than holding on to bitterness, she shared her platform, elevating those who had also struggled in the shadow of louder, slicker voices. Of course, life didn't become a fairy tale overnight. The trauma of betrayal left its marks. Emily sometimes awoke from vivid dreams, where Olivia held not just her dress, but her voice, her laughter. Walking past Olivia's name, now faded from Instagram headlines, featured only as a footnote in articles about industry ethics, brought a complicated mix of sadness and closure. Sometimes regret still flickered in Emily's chest. Could she have protected herself better, trusted less, forgiven more? Yet forgiveness took root with time. In rare, unexpected moments, Emily wished both Olivia and Jake peace. Her story was no longer defined by what had been taken from her, but by how she reclaimed herself and chose to move forward, unsparingly, honestly. As she accepted her first industry award, this time indisputably hers, Emily closed her eyes and whispered thanks to both the past that broke her and the future she had built. An even greater reward was her annual return to Willow Creek, where she began mentoring local students, hosting free workshops for creative teens. Some townsfolk still whispered about the scandal, but most greeted her with pride. Her presence gave hope to a new generation that talent and hard work could carry you farther than the stifling boundaries of a small town, and that when the world tried to erase you, you could rewrite your legend. Standing on the porch of her childhood home, one dusk, watching fireflies blink across the Texas field, Emily realized she had finally come full circle. She wasn't the same girl who had left, but she was finally whole. In the years to come, she would tell her story frankly, about trust, envy, and the rare magic of starting over. Each telling reminded her the world could be cruel, but it could also be forgiving. It could offer new stages for those brave enough to risk, lose, and try again. Emily's triumphant return wasn't marked only by fame or the restoration of her good name. It was marked by her unwavering honesty, her guardrails of dignity, and the courage to pull others up as she climbed. She had become more than a survivor. She had become a standard bearer for those who believed in justice, artistry, and the strength that comes from rising after each fall. The city lights beyond her window no longer intimidated her. They were possibilities, burning bright. And this time, unlike before, Emily knew she belonged, not as someone living in the shadow of loss, but as a creator, a leader, and a friend to all who dreamed bravely as she had. The world, at last, was hers to design.